No.
So the vestibular system is engaged with memory. It's engaged with emotional states. It's engaged with muscle tone. It's engaged with the gut function as well. So, and cognition. So a lot of people with anxiety oftentimes have a vestibular imbalance. So if you're dealing with chronic anxiety, it might be something to be evaluated. We've seen that. We also know that when we're working with the vestibular integration, there's a particular kind of problem that people have, some people, that is very debilitating to them emotionally, psychologically. So how many times have we seen people with a head tilt? Too numerous to count. A head tilt left or right. The head tilt, we go in and we're thinking mechanically, which is correct. We're thinking muscularly, which is correct. But we also need to add to our thought process the vestibular apparatus, because a vestibular system is one that gives us our reference for gravity, our gravity. Think about the vestibular system is fully formed in utero. What else is fully formed in utero before we're born? Fully formed. So that tells you something, right? And we know that there was some research done on frog models, not the same as a human, where they severed the vestibular nerve on one side and all the frogs developed a scoliotic deviation in their spinal development. How about that? So we got to realize that this is the central reference in here for gravity. And as that goes, so if I'm carrying my head like this all the time, I have a different reference to gravity, the gravitational, downward 9.6 meters per second, whatever it is. So I have a different frame of reference, which now changes the whole neurology just a bit. So I'll tell you something, a little aside related to this. When you have an opportunity to look at really mugshots of people who have done heinous things, terrible things, many times, not always, you'll see an eye that's vertical compared to the other one.
Yeah.
If not a head tilt, a vertical eye.
Yeah.
So a head tilt or a vertical eye are potential indicators of a vestibular imbalance related to a part of the vestibular system that drives right into the dopamine centers. So does everyone that have a head tilt or a vertical eye deviation called a hypertropia have some emotional? No, they don't. But when you do have, you're suffering emotionally, depression, anxiety, OCD, and you have a head tilt, and you have a vertical eye deviation, we call that a skew deviation, there's a likelihood or a probability that the vestibular system's not integrating well, which could be a core piece to give that person relief through functional neurology and improving it. Mind-blowing, right? That's
Actually, you just brought up something that I haven't thought about in 38 years. One of my roommates realized when he was getting adjusted that he had somewhat of a head tilt. And he realized, because he was partially deaf in one ear and he was always doing this. He was always to listen better.
Wow.
Yeah. And since I'm going deaf, I'm starting to do that too.
Well, since we're talking about an ear, and I have to wrap here because I have to get to see a client today. Think about Van Gogh, right? Not Van Gogh, Van Gogh. So he cut his ear off. Amazing artist. We saw some of his work in the south of France this summer. My wife and I had an opportunity to go, and we were right there where he painted Starry Night. And if you look at his pictures, there's like these waviness to the pictures, right? You may have noticed those, whether it's the sunflowers, whether it's Starry Night, whether it's the yellow tavern house or whatever it's called. So he has these waviness to it. So it's considered that he had this otolith imbalance in his vestibular system that caused him not only to paint things in a distorted way, but also to have a severe emotional mental disorder. And there's actually a wonderful book on famous artists and their, psychological conditions. It's quite interesting. So isn't that fascinating? And we stood right there on the bridge. There's a plaque there where he painted Starry Night. We got to kind of enjoy that, get the feeling of it, go by, and see all these wonderful things. It was a marvelous trip, but it caused me to realize that there's a lot of help for people with mental issues, concerns, struggles, suffering through functional neurology. And like you said, the many different layers of understanding what's going on in your brain, then which direction, which door do I go through? Is it, through psychedelics? Is it through mental health counseling, EMDR, functional neurology? But you got to understand the playing field so you can play the right game and get the right result.